Hi, my name is Kaniz Mahdi. I lead the Distributed Edge Cloud Technology function in the VMware Office of the CTO. I'm delighted to welcome my esteemed guest, Alex Choi, our SVP Strategy and Technology Innovation at Deutsche Telekom, and John Small, Executive Vice President of Emerging Technologies at T-Mobile, for a heart-to-heart discussion on the state of 5G, where we are, and how non-traditional ecosystems are helping to move the needle on the original ambition of 5G, as well as paving the way for the next generation of wireless. So with that, should we start with you, John?
Thank you, Kaniz, and hello, everybody. Following the merger with Sprint, T-Mobile now has incredible assets and is in a leading position with the largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G network today in the United States. We are spending upwards of $40 billion to ensure we remain the leader throughout the 5G era. The challenge we have is to make sure that we're able to utilize this investment to the best extent possible for our customers. So therefore, we are building a 5G ecosystem of developers and innovators to fuel innovation everywhere. In short, we have to build something bigger than ourselves. Just like smartphone apps built on 4G networks revolutionized the mobile economy in ways that no one could have predicted, the same will be true with 5G, but with innovation coming at a much greater scale across all industries. Last year, we co-founded the 5G Open Innovation Lab in Seattle, together with Microsoft, Intel, NASA, and VMware, plus others, to work directly with startups, developers, and entrepreneurs building the next big thing in 5G. At T-Mobile, we also run our T-Mobile Accelerator since 2014, and we focus on working with startups on specific themes. For instance, I just welcomed the fall cohort for the Accelerator recently, focused on wellness, technology, and wearables. We are very excited about the prospects of 5G at T-Mobile, and I'm just as excited to be on this panel today.
Thank you, John. Alex, any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Kaniz, for having me at this wonderful panel today. And hello, everyone. Let me first talk about the current status of Deutsche Telekom 5G rollout in Germany, Europe, as an example of 5G deployment landscape. We operate the leading 5G network in Germany, and our POP coverage is currently over 85%, and we want to achieve over 90% POP coverages by the end of this year. And since March, more than 66 million people in around 5,000 towns and cities across Germany are able to use our 5G network. And over 55,000 5G antennas are already transmitting with 5G across Germany. And DT Germany is using multiple frequencies for its 5G expansion. Our focus is more on 2.1 gigahertz and 3.6 gigahertz frequency band. And DT Germany has been using dynamic spectrum sharing to accelerate the expansions. Last but not least, DT Germany installed a first 5G standalone core network in a city close to Munich in March to carry out our standalone trial. The ORAN work is focused on providing an Open RAN standard complementary to the 3GPP standard and the minimum viable open source necessary to implement it.
Thank you, Alex. There's just no doubt initiatives like 5G Oil or RAN Alliance really has been very instrumental in helping the advancement of the original 5G promise. 5G is a generation of many firsts, but what makes it really, really unique is that it's the first generation of networking that will make connectivity as commonplace as any other utility. And we recently launched the Open Grid Alliance to help expedite this transformation. Alex and John, do you see this as a catalyst, for example, a fabric underpinning our societies? Or do you foresee any dangers, for example, malicious attackers using it for ransomware and stuff. John, would you like to start?
Thank you, Kaniz, and that's a very, very good question. Like most truly enabling technologies, 5G can be used for great good, and it can also be exploited for evil. The potential for bad to occur should not preclude the good, but more attention on prevention and migration of these threats is important to realize the full potential of 5G enabling technologies. I am a strong proponent that 5G will be a strong catalyst, Kaniz, to change the lives of our customers and help transform and disrupt many businesses. First, let's talk about LTE, the predecessor to 5G. A strong LTE network fueled the growth of many new businesses and business concepts and companies like Uber, Snapchat, Instagram. Yet, LTE is simply a very generic data layer built on previous generations of wireless Gs, like 2G, 3G. In 5G, it's different. This is the very first G in wireless designed from the ground up to meet the needs of vertical businesses and helping them transform their business. In the consumer space, 5G will enable new immersive experiences for consumers beyond just having a faster smartphone. 5G lifts the constraints of LTE in a way that hasn't been possible with prior generations of technology. With features like low latency for real-time processors and network flexibilities such as network slicing, with the ability to support a massive number of things and machines with capacity densities far beyond what LTE can ever deliver. In summary, Kaniz, as a catalyst, 5G has the potential to take your businesses, experiences, and creativity to the next level.
Thank you, John. Alex, do you agree with John's assessment?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it has both aspects, good and bad. Yeah. And while our telco infrastructure traditionally has the characteristics of a closed systems, which is more secure, honestly, but we telco managed to create a scale by maintaining service compatibilities among operators through a common standard signaling protocol. I believe this clever approach has been working quite well so far. On the other hand, for open networks, for example, traditional internet, has been exposed to numerous threats, which is the reason why today we have a so big security markets to protect our infrastructure and customers from hackers. And while we are pursuing more open and distributed architecture, which is completely inevitable, efforts to protect customers from such threat will continue, and the timely regulation is required along with the technological innovations. And interestingly, there's ongoing data protection and sovereignty initiative in Europe, such as GDPR and Gaia X, and those are the very, very good example of such efforts.
Let's talk about NextG for a moment. 5G, as we all know, is very, very early in its infancy, yet you see plethora of public and private partnerships, ecosystems, initiatives, you name it, spurring all over the globe on what people are calling 6G. What are your thoughts here? Do you see the 6G momentum overtaking 5G, or could it be something else? Let's start with Alex this time.
Okay, thank you, Kaniz. I believe there are few but very strong motivations behind the current 6G discussions. Of course, one is the geopolitics, but there are other reasons that's more important. For example, the building an environment-friendly telco infrastructures. To achieve this goal, implementing green technology in our infrastructure is going to be a critical to decrease the carbon emission footprint. Additionally, we need to develop technologies with the more customer-centric experience-centric, not provider-centric, as the top priority. And another aspect, which is more traditional, is of course, is the frequency band. we really need to start the discussion on whether it's necessary, really necessary, to select a dedicated frequency for 6G.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Alex, there. I think what we see is, 5G 10 years ago, when we were shaping the landscape for the research directions of 5G, we had some very audacious goals. We've met some of them, but a lot needs to be done, even in the labs and the research side of things. So, for example, time-sensitive communications, millimeter wave. There's a ton of research that's still yet to be done, and we do agree that it's going to be an evolutionary path, completing 5G. And by the time we get to completing 5G, we'll be on the onset of the traditional 10-year life cycle for the next G, which is going to be 6G in this case. John, any thoughts from your end?
Yeah, I agree with the both of you. Kaniz, you made a good point that this is going to be an evolutionary improvement, and Alex made a strong point that 6G is going to be an even more advanced version of 5G, right? And to your last question, I do not think that the 6G momentum will overtake 5G. In fact, I think that the exciting momentum we see behind 6G is probably fueled by the strong interest in 5G. Like I told you, 5G is the first G in wireless, designed from the ground up to disrupt more than just wireless, but to disrupt many businesses and consumer experience. Candidly, 6G will not take off if 5G is not successful. Deploying a new wireless technology, as Alex would tell you, requires a massive amount of capital dollars. And there will be no appetite to fund 6G networks if 5G is not successful and live up to what we promise as operators to customers and enterprises. Billions of dollars have already been spent on 5G. In spectrum acquisitions alone in the United States, more than $100 billion have been spent on buying spectrum for 5G, right? And the deployments is happening globally. I think the GSA just announced this week that there are 176 operators deploying 5G in 72 countries already. So billions are being spent on deployments. We have to finish the rollout of 5G and make it a success now. I think the time for 6G will come. Like you both said, it's going to be evolutionary, right? Typically, a new wireless technology generation is introduced roughly every 10 years. I see even more momentum for 6G towards the end of this decade. And whatever 6G ends up to be, it'll be even better than 5G in terms of performance, in terms of its open interfaces, like Alex was getting at, and in terms of cost to deploy.
Yeah, fully agree with you there, John. If 5G is not successful, we can imagine what would be the excitement around 6G, right? Personally, having seen the transition from 4G into 5G and previously from 3G into 4, I feel that 6G will be mostly, at the onset, will be about enabling the application ecosystem for the radio advancements that we put forward in 5G. So just like 3G into 4G, broadband really did not pick up until the iPhone was invented, right? So hoping to see some miracle happening toward the as 5G matures and the application landscape forming. So talking about applications, people talk about URLC, the ultra reliable low latency communications, and there are huge hopes on 5G being able to enable remote communications over long distances, which are not time constrained. Just one example of the disruption that 5G is expected to bring. Do you see, as you mentioned earlier on, 5G is all about verticals. So do you see the vertical silos growing independent of each other, or do you see a common horizontal layer shaping up to create a common ground for many ecosystems that basically emerge from those common grounds? Any thoughts, John, in that common horizontal layer For example, network as a service or anything else that's emerging?
Sure. I think you're going to see growth in both. I think you're going to see growth in the vertical spaces because each of the businesses that 5G can help transform will have to basically look for capabilities that they need to transform their businesses by leveraging 5G. So you'll see a lot of vertical growth in areas like healthcare, in manufacturing, in utilities, right? So a lot of this will look to 5G to try to disrupt their verticals. Smart grid for utilities as an example, right? Remote patient treatment for healthcare as another example. But at the same time, I think you make a good point, Kaniz, that you need a horizontal layer across that's common. That's a common ground for all this, right? You mentioned network as a service. Certainly, NAS is an aggregation of cloud services, right, involving hardware, software, management tools, licenses, and life cycle services. It's a cloud-based service. And certainly 5G is an important enabler for a network as a service type applications because it is a very fast conduit to the cloud. And it allows for near real-time access to clouds via edge computing from anywhere, right? Not just where you can have strong fiber. So certainly I think 5G, NAS is a very common layer that 5G can enable. I think in the totality, 5G can be a bedrock for many plethora of innovations, not just network as a service. If you're looking for that horizontal common ground, we can talk about network slicing. It can be thought as a horizontal layer too, right? The capability to dynamically allocate network resources to meet requirements of different applications, right? And in turn create ecosystem in each of these slices that leverage and support these use cases, right? Another horizontal layer that I can think of is end-to-end service layer orchestration, right? That involves orchestration at every domain level to meet service level KPIs. So I think there are many horizontal layers that 5G will play an important role to do that. And it's really an overall set of network functionalities like this that form the base layer so that each of the vertical silos can thrive and be innovative in terms of what they can leverage 5G for.
Yeah, network as a service, network slicing, end-to-end network service orchestration and assurance, definitely very, very strong common grounds. Alex, any thoughts from your end?
Oh yeah, thank you, Kaniz. This is a very, very good question, and I completely agree with John's statement. Let me try to build on top and by saying a few words about 5G network slicing. I really would like to reiterate the significance of 5G network slicing as a potential candidate for the future network as a service. An important service function in 5G is, we all know, it's end-to-end network slicing, which will be a key basis for the horizontal layers we are talking now. And also, if the network slicing is bundled with other cloud services like IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, it will be packaged as a NAS. And I believe it will be standardized as the fourth cloud service category following the existing IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. And in order for network slicing or network as a service to solidify its position as a fourth cloud service element and create the synergy with the diverse business cases and other cloud services, we really need some kind of a de facto standard for the open network API for the sake of the whole ecosystem. And also, it's very necessary to expand the scope of, so-called in IT, there's a notion of infrastructure as code. So this notion has to be further extended to the 5G or 6G network services. So if we successfully manage to complete this work, we should be able to implement the horizontal platforms.
So, John, when we were discussing the panel questions, few days ago, you made a very interesting comment. You said that God was able to create the universe in 6 days because he didn't have to deal with a legacy. My question to you is, what if there wasn't any legacy? And if there weren't any legacy, what would be one thing that you would do differently when you were shaping the new landscape for 6G?
That is certainly a thought-provoking question. I think there's a lot of things that we can do differently had we not have to deal with legacy networks. If you look at even the protocol for 5G and even LTE, we still have some legacy protocols in there. I think we talked about GTP in last week. All right, the tunneling protocol. It was there because it was a bridge to older technologies like 3G and 2G, right? In order to bring them up on the compatibility scale. Had we not have legacy networks, we would not have to worry about that. And 5G's evolution as a standard to disrupt our customers' lives and experience will be even faster. I think Alex has done a lot of work on open interfaces, and potentially that could usher in a whole new era. Had we not have to deal with legacy issues and legacy networks that many of us have to deal with as operators. So, many things could be done differently, Kaniz, if not for legacy networks. But I'm trying to strike a balance here. It's because of legacy networks that signs our paychecks too, because some of us have hundreds of millions of customers to take care of. So you cannot get away from it. But it's good to just take a few seconds to just think about, hey, if there's no legacy network, clean sheet of paper, what could we do, right? As an industry, as well as operators, and there's much we can do, but let's not forget we have also learned a lot from our legacy as well. We learned a lot from LTE. We never expected LTE to take off the way it has. Like I said, it created companies that are now verbs on Google, like let's go get an Uber, right? This is all enabled by LTE. Let's not forget that. So there's good things with legacy networks, and slows us down sometimes as we make progress, and we have to strike a balance.
Yeah, fully agree with you. We wouldn't be enjoying the luxuries of Uber and the shared economy if it weren't for LTE. So that's for sure. Alex, what's your dream scenario?
Very interesting questions. I absolutely agree with John's opinion. So I don't need to repeat what John mentioned. So one thing if I add is once again, nothing is wrong with the legacy. But however, if we assume we are the greenfield operator, then the brownfield operator, and start to build the new infrastructure, then definitely the tool sets and the skills and technologies availability is gonna make our strategy quite different from the legacy approaches. For example, it's a cloudification, softwareization, software driven, data driven. Those are the key enablers which we will adopt very from the beginning to build up our infrastructures.
Very well said, Alex. Cloud native evolving into AI native would be my favorite. Thank you so much, both of you. It has been a very interesting conversation, and looking forward to continue the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.